So there's a reason some short films look cinematic and others look amateur, even when they're shot on the same camera. And usually it's down to one thing: lighting. If you want your short film to look expensive without breaking the bank, then this video is for you. In this mini course, we're going to explore some common lighting setups and some key principles in lighting to make sure that you can level up your next short film. By the way, I'm John, I'm a cinematographer and filmmaker, and on this channel I make short films, filmmaking breakdowns and tutorials. By the end of this course, you'll have lighting setups that you can reference, and you'll have lighting techniques that you can apply to your next short film. For this video, I'm only using the following lighting units from Sirui, who are kind enough to send me these for this video: the Sirui C300X, the C60, and the C150. I think this is a great package to start with if you're a beginner filmmaker, but if you want to find out more information on these lights, there's a link down in the description. I've also timestamped everything in the video below, so feel free to jump ahead if you want to. So when we talk about quality of light, we're not talking about good or bad quality. We're talking about soft light versus hard light. The difference comes down to the shadows that they create. And you see this all the time in nature. On a bright sunny day, shadows are crisp and harsh. That's hard light. On an overcast day, the clouds diffuse the sun and the shadows become soft. So what changes the quality? Two things: the size of the light source and the distance it is away from the subject. A small light equals a hard source, and a large light source equals soft light. But distance matters as well. For example, a large softbox placed far away from the subject will still act like a small light source. And a smaller light source brought close to the subject, well, that will get a little bit softer. It's all about how big your light appears to your subject. Larger and closer equals softer, and smaller and further equals harder. And knowing this allows you to control the quality of the light. Where you place your light will completely change the mood, the depth, and the meaning of the shot. Move your light to the front. This will give you a flat and even look. No mystery, no shape. This can work for beauty, comedy. It's rarely going to give you anything dramatic. Shift your light to the side, and now you've got shape. Shadow on one side of the face adds dimension and tension. Place it above the talent, and now you've got a top light. For example, one of my favorite films, The Godfather, uses a lot of top light. Depending on the angle, it can look natural or it can look oppressive. Placing the light behind your character gives you backlight, and this is often where the magic happens. But there's no one right place to put a light. It all depends on the feel and the emotion you're trying to evoke. And your job as a filmmaker is to ask, what direction creates the emotion that supports this moment in the story? So exposure isn't just about making sure your image is bright enough. It's about what you want your audience to see and what you want to keep hidden. Sometimes that means underexposing part of the frame on purpose, and sometimes it means overexposing something. It all has meaning, and it all has to come down again to the filmmaker's choice. Take, for example, one of my short films, The Vice. I played a character completely in silhouette for their entire time in the film. Now, the reason I did this was very specific. They were playing death, or a version of death, and I wanted them to be hidden in mystery, and I wanted them to have a sense of danger to the character, the other character, and to the audience. By playing him in silhouette means you couldn't see anything. I also placed the light above the character, slightly in front, just so he could lean forward when he chose and thought it was appropriate for his character to reveal parts of his face to the other character in the scene. And this is what exposure can do when you use it with purpose. You're not just balancing different lights, you're controlling information to the viewer, and you're controlling emotion. A good way to think about this is ask yourself, what do I want the audience to see and notice, and what do I want the audience to not see and withhold information? That's how you can use exposure to help tell your story. So color temperature is how warm or how cool your light looks. We're not talking about the heat, we're talking about color tone. So take, for example, warm light looks orange, yellow, and a cool light looks blue. Color temperature is measured in numbers, specifically Kelvin. Lower numbers equals a warmer light, and higher numbers equals a cooler light. A candle is around 1800 Kelvin, very orange. A household lamp might be 2700 to 3200 Kelvin, still quite warm. Daylight, that's around 5600 Kelvin, more neutral. An overcast sky or shade can go even higher, somewhere around 6500 Kelvin. So how can we use this in our filmmaking? So we can use it to match light sources, whether together or to exterior light sources, and make everything feel much more natural. We can also use it to create color contrast by using 2 different colors within the frame, creating emotion and separation. And once you understand color temperature, it becomes another creative tool for you to use in your filmmaking toolkit. So these are some of the fundamentals of lighting. You need to learn how to sculpt and shape the light, but this is all the technical part of it. But the thing is, there's no single right way to light a scene. So the question you need to keep in your mind at all times is, what's the best choice for the story you're telling? So now we're going to jump into the scenes and the breakdowns. I don't want you to think of this as the way you can only light these type of scenes. There are hundreds of ways you can light any kind of scene. This is more of like a starting point and like a reference for you to learn upon. It's all about now learning, experimenting, and testing out what you like, what you don't like, and just how you become a cinematographer and a storyteller. The first light we're going to set up is our key light, the main source that shapes our subject, and in this case, represents the dining room overhead light. It's worth noting we don't need to see the fixture on screen for the audience to understand what this is meant to be. The way it lights the scene implies what's there. For the key light, I'm using the Sirui C300 paired with a softbox. It gives us a large, soft key, enough to wrap light across the entire table. Once positioned, I set the exposure. Using false color, I dial in the skin tones to sit between 50 and 70 IRE, a solid range for a natural skin tone. And now here's what the frame looks like with just the key light active. I've set it to 3200 Kelvin for that warm ambient interior feel. Next, I attach a grid to the softbox. This turns a soft, broad source into something more controlled and directional. Here's a before and after. Notice how the grid has affected the spread of the light, giving us more contrast and isolating the light into a tighter, focused beam on the subject and table. And when it comes to placement, the key light is placed overhead and slightly off to one side of the subject. This creates a shadow on the near side of the character's face, the side facing the camera, adding mood and depth. If we move the light to the other side, we brighten the near side of the face. That can work, but it's less dramatic. Not ideal if we're aiming for a moody dining room scene. With our key light in place, we move to our next element, the background. Using the C60 with a 40-inch Octa softbox, I place this outside of the windows, and then set to 6500 Kelvin. And for the third and final light, I added a subtle edge light to the character on the right side of the frame. It gives a bit more shape and lift, especially against the darker background. And here is our final shot. 3 lights, all motivated, all working together. However, small changes can have a big impact. By lowering our key light slightly, it shifts the mood a bit further. Adjusting the window light to a more neutral temperature creates a different atmosphere. We can keep the edge light that separates our subject from the background, and then by adding a couple of practical lamps in the background, we bring warmth, depth, and a bit more visual interest. This is the beauty of lighting. There isn't one correct version of this scene, but each one adds or takes away from the story you're telling.
Go to motionray.com to add this to your video.
Yeah, sorry guys, can't skip this one. I just want to take a moment to talk about today's sponsor, Motion Array, and whilst I do, I'll show you another quick little setup. So Motion Array has millions of high quality assets, music, templates, LUTs, sound effects, and plugins. And all the music and graphic elements I've used in this video has all been from Motion Array, and it's just made my workflow so much smoother. It's membership based, unlimited downloads, and no extra hidden fees. And of course, you can use these assets everywhere. You can choose between 2 subscription options, monthly or an annual plan that will save you money. And what makes Motion Array really stand out is how easy it is to use. With customizable templates and a unique filter system that allows you to find what you're looking for fast. They even have 50 plus pro-grade plugins for Premiere Pro, After Effects, and DaVinci Resolve. Plus, it has AI voiceovers, which I'm gonna let take over the rest of the script whilst I finish setting up.
Thank you, John. And with Motion Array's extension plugin, the library can now live inside your editing software. No more downloading zip files, it's built right into your timeline. check out John's link down in the description, where you'll get 2 months absolutely free. And here's the final shot.
Yeah, it's because she's been dating that douchebag Steve Harrington.
Yep.
Definitely make sure you check out Motion Array and get your 2 months absolutely free. But this is the final shot, and let's move on to the next one. So this shot right now is actually lit with 3 lights. If I turn them off, this is actually what it looks like. So this is the shot with no lights at all. It's just the exposure I've set in the camera and the shot framed as it is. Now, I've set my exposure to this window here. If we go ahead and look on waveforms, we can see this window is pretty much at 100 IRE. There's a few elements inside of it, and on false color as well, we can see that this is clipping red or just clipping, but we can see that the subject is not lit. However, there's a couple of things we need to take into consideration. First thing is the quality of the light needs to be the same as what's coming through the window. Now this window is producing a lot of soft light because it's not direct sunlight coming through. So we're going to add the Sirui softbox to the C300X2. I'm also going to add a grid to that soft light so it helps us control the spill of that soft light. So there's actually one more thing we need to do before we actually switch the light on, and that's find out what is the color temperature coming from this window. Now I've got a data color light meter here, and it also comes with an app which is really handy. There's going to be more information on this soon, but basically what we're doing is I'm holding this up towards the window, and it's going to tell me what the color temperature coming in actually is. And right now it's saying 6500 Kelvin. So I'm going to set my camera to 6500 Kelvin in its white balance. And then using this Sirui app, I can also set the light to 6500 Kelvin as well. So now we've got our color temperature set, and the quality of the light source is the same as what's coming through the window. Now all we need to do is actually put up the brightness of the light and get the exposure we want. So if we go to 100% brightness, that is the maximum output this light is going to give us. So for me, this looks a bit too bright. It looks a bit too lit, like we actually do have a light source there. And we're actually going to have to dial down the exposure here because we are getting a bit too bright. Again, because the outside is changing, that's what we need to match to. I'm going to dial it down to 70%. And I think for me, that's probably the sweet spot. So outside is bright. As we come inside of the room, things need to be getting darker, and they need to fall off and get darker as they get closer to the camera. We want to make sure that the key light here is not brighter than this, but actually less bright. It needs to be dimmer. And we're fine right now because we're pretty much at key. We're pretty much at middle gray. We're around the 40, 50, 60 IRE on the skin here. So whilst we could finish here just with one light above the window, pushing a bit more volume and level inside the room, there's a couple of other things we can do as well. This image is quite contrasty, and if we wanted to fix that, we could actually put a fill light over this side and just get some more ambient in. So what I've done is set up the Sirui C150X. If I switch this one on, you can see that the light is shining into the wall, and then it's bouncing back and giving just a little bit more exposure into the shadow side here. Now we can obviously go to 100%, and then it kind of flattens a lot of things out. We're still getting the contrast because this is less output than what we're getting this side, but you can see the image quality of the shot, and the contrast is what gives you the feel of the image. So that's 0. I would probably say for my taste for this shot, I'm probably going to just give us a little bit more ambient coming from that side, about 20%, and that's from the 150. Again, we could leave it here, but I want a little bit more exposure on the subject's face. I've got the C60 set up here, and it's literally right out of frame. If I grab it, I can actually reach it, and it's right there, just out of shot. And I've got the softbox attached to this as well. And what this is doing is just going to give me a little bit of level onto the subject's face, chest, just to give me a little bit more of a push. So if I switch that one on, there's the level there. And again, we're at about 20% output here. That still feels natural. If we go into false color, we can see the difference there of that. It's just a little bit more push onto the area where the subject is sat. All 3 of these lights are bicolor, which means the key light was set to 6500 to match the window and our white balance on the camera. So I've also been able to set both of these lights to 6500 Kelvin and 6500 Kelvin on this, matching all the lights with the window. And again, with the soft boxes and stuff, we've been able to control the light in its quality as well. This is the tracking shot. We're following in front of our character as they walk. The goal is to light our character using available practical lights as motivation for our key light. We'll be using the Sirui C60X with a 40-inch softbox on a pole. The first thing we do is find a part of the location with practical lights we can use. In this first location, we notice these two street lights. By placing the subject with their back towards the light, it creates an edge light around the subject, separating them from the background. Now, where should we put our key light? Well, we could light from the same side as the street light that's giving us this backlight. By doing that, we're motivating our key light from the same practical. This helps sell our key light and makes it more believable to the viewer. What helps sell this even more is that in the background we have more of these lights. This tells the viewer what is lighting our subject. In the second shot, we're doing the same thing, but the location threw up a new challenge. Watch this clip and see if you can spot the issue. There's a shadow from our softbox. This is not ideal. As we walk along the path, we get light from multiple street lamps. So now we're getting an edge light and a front light. So what do? We moved the character's starting position. We chose a section of the path where the streetlights were partially covered by trees. That gave us more broken, dappled light and helped hide the softbox shadow. Again, we put our light on the same side as the practicals, but in this location, the color temperature of the streetlights was different. So we took a reading of the streetlight's color temperature, and then we matched our light to that. Now we're ready to shoot. For the third shot, we moved to a high street. Here, we wanted to use the shop windows as our motivation for our key light. But there was a problem. Light from the opposite side of the street was spilling in too. So we found this stretch of the high street where the lights were only coming from one side. That gave us a better shadow side and a cleaner shape to the light. Then we added our key light from the same side as the shops. Now it feels like the shop windows are lighting the character. That's the motivation, and the light feels consistent with the environment. And finally, I wanted to add in a bonus shot for you with this setup. By using these techniques, we can apply this to any shot outside, this time inside a car. There's a street light outside the car giving us a strong edge light. It separates the character from the background nicely, but what do we do if we want to see a bit more of the face? We could use the same street light as our motivation for the key. We check the color temperature, 1900 Kelvin. Our light only goes to 2500 Kelvin, but it's close enough. We placed it on the same side and aimed it from a similar angle. To go one step further, we wanted to separate the character even more. Right now, the character's shadow side blends into the dark. So we added a subtle backlight. We placed a couple of torches on the rear seat to give them an edge. That gave us a bit of separation and a bit of color contrast. Warm against cool. So to make a silhouette, there's two principles we need to follow. One is the bright exposed background, and the second part is having the subject not lit or in darkness. And that character against that bright background is what creates the silhouette. And also distance will help as well. So how we're going to do this is light the back of the garage, then there's a space in front of this where the character won't be lit, and that will create our silhouette. And then in front of that, we're going to have the backlight for the rain, then we're going to have the rain, and then we're going to have the camera. So that's the order of how we're lighting this whole shot. Right, so to light the back of the garage, we've actually got the C60 here, 100%, and it's on around 2700 Kelvin. That's just lighting the entire background here. And then another thing we had to do was light a bit more of the space so we could actually see the outline of the subject. So we've got the C150 here with the little softbox, and that's just casting a little bit of light down here, again, to give a bit more exposure to create our whole background of light. And then the backlight for the rain, we're going to set up to the highest possible we can on these lights, which is going to be around 6800 Kelvin. And that's going to give us that nice color separation. Down in the description, there's a link to a PDF, which is 5 tips to better cinematography. It's just some little extra tips in there and some bonus videos. If you did make it to the end, please drop a comment below. I'd love to hear what you thought about this. Anyway, thanks again. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.